Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of ASTV's Fantasy Football Show. My name is Gally. I will be hosting tonight, and I am joined by Mr. Green Arrow himself, as the name tag says. Salim, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Quite the come up for me from 5 million plus into the 1.3 million, I think now. So, uh, yeah, I'm pretty pleased with how things are going.
Always a good thing when it's on the up. I always say you got to be careful when you ride the up. Sometimes you also take the escalator back down. So you got to stay positive and keep making those moves. And we'll look at the teams in a little bit. But as we always do, remind folks that we do run an American Scouser Cup. You can still get involved. You still can get in the league. It's open. So just take this code off the screen, click on Join Public Leagues, enter in the code, get yourself in there, and who knows, we might find your name on one of these slides. And when the cup competition starts in a few more weeks, 10 or 15 weeks, I think the actual head-to-head cup competition will begin. Who knows? You can be in the league by then, and you can always win our overall prize, let alone getting into one of our top scorers. So let's take a look at our standings currently in our American Scouser Cup. Big week for Rubeck Central FC, moved all the way up to top 50,000 in the world, just under 500 points.
Yeah,
Made a
Captain
few
Saka.
transfers, made a good move with Saka as captain, which obviously really helped, made that bounce. And a 78 is nothing to shake at. Very good week overall. And then, of course, we have, some of our normal ones. Unused substitute has basically been in our top 10 for 2 or 3 seasons now. An interesting match week 7 wild card, which was a little bit surprising there, but really kind of attacked those fixtures. So nice score there as well. And it'll be interesting to see where this shakes out. Good luck to all the folks that are in this league, and we appreciate you playing. We'll see how we do, and we'll keep updating that each week. So, been a couple weeks since we did the show. Obviously, international break. Um, take a look here. Well, let's recap match week 7 real quick. Saka had a big week, obviously. Was it a goal, 2 assists, 3 bonus points, and a clean sheet? So, a really nice week there. Then, kind of like one of those odd weeks, right? All the defense, not players that many of the top 10,000 or top even 100,000 had in their sides. Really, outside of maybe Bowen, um, is there another name outside of Saka on this that you think you'll start to see other managers invest in for the weeks to come?
Uh, the only the only one I can look at, and just from a fixture perspective, I would say Nori coming up. He's got Man City. They got Man City, and then a nice stretch of games. So maybe him, but I mean, other than that, Saka. But Saka's got Bournemouth and then Liverpool. So yeah, I'd say Nori.
Yeah, I think Altonori could be one that folks start to invest in. I know I've been thinking about bringing him in a week or two. I think another one that quietly might become one is, the Jorginho, which is basically Jorginho Rudder. He was a former Leeds player. I think he was Leeds' all-time record buy when they bought him. He came to Brighton in the offseason. He's his underlying numbers have been outstanding, and João Pedro's out. It looks like he's going to continue to play, and Brighton's looked really good with him playing both as a central striker and playing off of Welbeck. So I think there's a world where at 5.5 he could be a really really cheap option into a pretty good Brighton attack as their fixtures start to turn a little bit. I also think that Nathan Collins is also at least a considerable shout based on the fact that Brentford are such a threat from set pieces. He's one of the players that really attacks them, and they're very well defensively set up at this moment that I think they have the opportunity for some clean sheets. So I'm not investing in Antonio. I don't think Kovacic does this again. You know, Boynate is a nice player, but he's not going to get the points he needs to at Leicester. So for me, I think it's probably Rudder, Altonori, and I still think there's an outside shot that either Pickford or one of the Everton defenders could come really good, as they have a really good run of fixtures.
Yeah,
And, as Branthwaite gets back, as Mikolenko gets back, their defense is going to go back to Sean Dyche, where, they get some 0-0 draws, some 1-0 victories. So I think you could see some clean sheets there.
for sure.
We touched on talking a little bit more about, looking at XG numbers and comparing them. I thought this was a good little chart here. This is basically the top scorers in the Premier League so far this year, as well as the top guys with their XG numbers. I think it's no surprise to me to see Holland, have the highest XG, have the highest goal scored, have the most shots, and the most shots on target.
Hmm.
I'm a little shocked to the fact that Holland has twice as many shots on target as anyone else in the Premier League. How would you attribute this, Salim? Do you think this is more evidence and reason why the $15 million price tag is an absolute must? Are we starting to get to the point with a couple matches in a row where he's looked a little bit more human? Like, do you think we'll start to see players move away from Holland? How do you see these numbers, and what jumps out at you when you look at this comparison of these 10 players?
Yeah, he outdoes his XG, and he did it last year as well. So, the XG is basically saying he should have scored 6 goals and he scored 9. And he's their main man. I mean, they look for him, they feed him. He's always in the box. He's taking shots. I don't think we're really all that surprised by that. The actual total shots might be a little bit surprising that he doesn't have even more, but they must have been not quality shots because the XG is still at 6. So, which is still a great XG. Palmer, let me see. They're all the guys that have high XGs I've looked to exceed them, especially minus not Welbeck, Watkins. And Watkins got off to a rough start. So that's going to come around for sure. And let me see. And Mbuemo's got a good one too. He's exceeding. There's a lot of, it's literally the who's and who have made like really big impacts. We saw Madueke score a hat trick from that right side, literally 3 identical goals 4 weeks ago. Nicholas Jackson's been playing well. The XG is fun to look at because it shows you kind of where they should be at, generally speaking. So if you're scoring around your XG, plus or minus 1 or 2, you're in good shape. The fact that that Holland is, plus 3 over, and who knows how much he could be over really at the end of the season. I could see, a 10, like a 6-7 and him having 14 goals.
It's unbelievable. It really is. It really is crazy. I did find it comical almost that as they throw these players out there, right? You look down and you see, the starts versus, overall appearances versus starts. Diaz being the only one who has 1 sub appearance. And then they have John Duran down here with 6 substitute appearances, 8 total shots, 4 on target, 3 goals. I mean,
he's a stud.
Talk about a guy who's just literally putting himself on the map, putting himself out there as, one of the better goal scorers. I'm not going to say overall center forwards because he's got a lot more to do to his game, I think, to become an all-around player. But just pure goal scorer right now, he is on great form, has enormous amount of confidence. And I think at some point, eventually he has to knock on the door to get some starts here eventually, right?
Yeah, it's hard with Watkins there, and yeah, they got to find a way to put both of them on the pitch at the same time. I mean, have to. It's great to have a super sub that is impactful, but you got to get him on the field, man. If he's 6 substitution appearances, I mean, give me a break, man.
It's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Of the players on the screen, any that you are fading, any that you would be looking at saying these numbers don't hold, these numbers don't continue, or I'm going to avoid that based on either price or just kind of what your gut tells you right now with these types of players?
Yeah, it's Luis Diaz, man. I hate to say it. He usually has a lot of chances and scores, but I mean, look at his XG. He's 2.5 over his XG, and we've seen him play for a long time. He's a good player. He's lively. He gets up and down the field. He works hard. He's always running. It's just that final product that's been missing, and I want to see it continue. I can't see it though.
Yeah, I'm with you on Diaz. I brought him in during my wild card, more or less because I wanted a Liverpool attacker and I couldn't afford to bring in Mo. And I like the price point and knowing I'd be moving off him within a week or two. I'll probably move him. We'll look at our teams a little bit here on the show. I'll probably move him this week as one of my transfers, if not my only transfer. Even if I hold on to him this week, I may bench him and then just save to make the 3 transfers next week without taking the hit if I don't feel like I need him. I really like Delap. I do understand where Ipswich isn't scoring enough goals, but I think at that price point, if you're looking for a budget-friendly differential, he's a good one. I'm little concerned along the lines of Luis Diaz with Nicholas Jackson. Like, I understand he's playing better. I understand he's in a side that scores a lot of goals, which probably means he'll get a bunch of, assists to Cole Palmer and some, tap-ins of his own.
Right.
Just feel like at some point, they're going to play João Felix. I feel like at some point they're going to play Nkunku more. As time goes on, I just see Nicholas Jackson's minutes waning because they have such a good offensive attack. And I just think that eventually, so I think I'd be fading Diaz. I'd also be fading Nicholas Jackson. And I think Madueke as well. He's hit or miss. He's lightning in a bottle. And I think at this point, it's like you really want to invest in Palmer or wait for them to figure their defense out and then try to invest there when the fixtures turn. So speaking of investments, let's take a look at the numbers as of this afternoon. Let's start with the outs. Luis Diaz, no surprise, number 1 out. I don't expect him to start this weekend against Chelsea. But then I kind of do, so I'm a little torn there too. Like I almost feel like, do I hold on to him for one more week, give him one start? Because Chelsea's got a really weakened back line, including, no Cucurella, most likely also no Reece James. So, you'd think Luis Diaz could maybe really attack down that side and kind of exploit some of the space without Fofana as well. So it's interesting there. João Pedro injured. Mazraoui out for a few months, it looks like, with a heart condition. And I'm the first to take shots at United players. I don't mess around when someone goes to the doctor because they don't feel well and come out with a heart condition. Like that. I'm no jokes aside. I hope Mazraoui and his family find all the medical treatment they need. And I hope he doesn't rush himself back. Mo Salah, not a big surprise with Liverpool's fixtures. And I think the fact that so many people are trying to figure out ways to fit Saka, Palmer, and Haaland in sides. And I think the easiest route to that is obviously dropping Mo Salah. And then Isak. So of the players that were outbounds, any of them that are on your side or in your side currently you're thinking about selling, any surprises to you on that list?
No, not really. Mo Salah, I've been tinkering for 10 days or whatever. I'm like, do I get rid of him? Do I not? And I finally decided, I'm like, he does well against big teams. Against Chelsea, he's done well. Cucurella's out with 5 yellow cards. Fofana's out with 5 yellow cards. I was like, I'm just going to roll the dice with him one more time. And he's probably out after this game week for me. It's because when you look at the people coming in, Saka, I think it's a little too early to bring him in. He had a great game, but they got a tough run to like week 12. And then I think that's when you want to bring in Saka. But I think everybody kind of rushed to bring him in because of that 16-pointer. I mean, he was unbelievable. But Johnson is one that I'm really got my eyes on, and Mbeumo. So I got kind of a plan, maybe like Salah out, and then bring in Johnson and Mbeumo, and just pull one of my, midfielders that doesn't, maybe Dibbling or something. Potentially bringing in Foden. He's 0.3 under what he came in at the beginning of the season. I mean, he was player of the year last year. He was unreal last year. So I got some decisions to make, but I think this week I'm going to just hold tight. And I'll have 4 for next week, and I can really kind of mess around a little bit more. But Mo definitely is the one that's going to be seeing a lot of exits, even I think next week.
Yeah, and I think it's always, you got to be nervous there, because sometimes a player like that, it snowballs before you know it. They drop, a tenth, 2/10 of a point in price, and before you know it, you're selling a player either at a loss or at a slight gain. Palmer, with all the buys, doesn't really surprise me. I think the McNeil move makes a lot of sense as well.
Yeah, that's a good move. Yeah,
he's adding goals. He's creating opportunities. I like the Johnson move. I just get a little worried at times. It's kind of like with Diaz, I'm worried about rotation and all the midweek matches, and then and Slot starting to play players based on which player fits the tactics required. So, like, I think we could see Gakpo start some Champions League games and Diaz start. I think eventually, as Richarlison gets healthy, he's back in training. You have Son back. I think as good as Brennan Johnson is, and he's at a great price point, I still worry a little bit about the minutes at some point with the rotations. I do think they're going to go after trying to do well in all the cups. And I think that won't allow them to rotate as much, because I think Ange really wants to win himself the trophy if he can. And I that's just my only trepidation about Johnson, because Johnson has been outstanding.
Yeah,
his numbers are great.
Mm-hmm.
But I again, it's kind of like the Chelsea thing. Like, I think at some point, players are probably going to actually stump up the money. And to your Phil Foden point, I think eventually people are just going to be like, all right, we went long enough here. I'm either going to invest in Solanke or I'm going to invest in Son. I'm going to get one of the two, because I think eventually they're going to start scoring the majority of goals and pulling the majority of hauls from the side. So we talked about your side a little earlier. Let's take a look. Last week, you squeaked by with the 1 point, moving on the green arrow. You made a nice little move, moving up from, just outside of 1.5 million to the top 1.3. Obviously, some things that worked for you last week. Wood has continued to score you points.
Yeah.
Obviously, Trent and having Martinez in goal, all really big things. Not much from, the Arsenal defenders, Dibbling, Rogers, Smith Rowe, etc. And, of course, the blank from Holland. Keeping the captaincy on Palmer was a positive move in your part. So I think you mentioned earlier, no plan to make a transfer this week. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's the plan originally was to pull Mo Salah and then to add like Foden and Mbeumo, or Foden and Johnson, or just a mixture of those. Originally, I was thinking Saka, but I saw him kind of pull up with that hamstring. I was like, oh, and I don't love this run of games quite yet. Saka will be on my team at some point, but without moving Salah, I can't really do anything. So just because I want to see what he does against Chelsea. I mean, even if he gets like a brace or a goal and assist, even if he has a good game, I think I'm going to pull him and just kind of refresh my team a little bit.
And remind me, do you have 1 free transfer, 2 free transfers? Where are you?
I have 3. I have 3 currently. So I think I'm just going to wait. Yeah, so I'll have 4. I'll really be able to kind of move stuff around. Pedro Porro's pissing me off. He hasn't done really anything until since like the first couple game weeks. I think he had an assist like 3 weeks ago. He's starting to irritate me, but I do want a Tottenham asset because they have a good run of games. So, but yeah, he's Pedro Porro is really irritating me.
Yeah, I've had him in my side a couple times, or at least once this year, and it hasn't gone so smooth for him. Let me ask you on Trent. I want to get your stance on Trent. Obviously, right now, Trent's attacking numbers have not been there. We are keeping some clean sheets, which has helped his fantasy points. He's doing well. I think he will probably really increase. Sideline Football Show says, big up Gally and Salim.
What's up?
Hello to the Sideline Football Show. I want to thank them. They had me on last weekend on their Liverpool panel on Saturday, and it was a lot of fun. So I really enjoyed doing the show. And so if you're watching right now on YouTube, go ahead, check out Sideline Football Show, check out their page, and give it a subscription. And while you're at it, well, if you haven't already, why don't you hit the subscription at the bottom of this screen as well? Where the hell was I before I got sidetracked with a shameless plug of a show I was on?
We were talking Salah.
I was going to ask you about
Trent. Yeah.
Yeah. So with his numbers going down, with the clean sheets, points having a rise, but the fixtures turning, and some really, really tough runs of matches in the Champions League, I expect to see a little bit of rotation, more rotation than we've gotten to see so far. And I think some of that may come in the league. Do you feel this might be the time, the next week, 2 weeks, where managers are going to have to make a real conscious decision around Trent? Because you have Alisson out, which, as good as Kelleher is, decreases the chances of clean sheets, because Alisson saves a goal at least once a match, in my opinion, that I'm not sure Kelleher always does. And we haven't seen as much of an attacking prowess or the setup being built around him like it was before under Klopp. Like, is 7-1 too much even for a midfielder at right back if you're not getting attacking returns moving forward?
Yeah, it might be. I never thought about that. Trent for me, my team was just like a set it and forget it kind of guy.
I agree.
So he's the fact that the points are coming now more on clean sheets than they are goals and assists is interesting, but they're still coming. So, you are right. The next run of games are just insane. On my podcast, me and my co-host, we went through the next 5 before November. I mean, it's insane. And then it gets even rougher, not rougher, but it's still bad. Like for 10 straight weeks. I mean, it's rough till maybe like mid-December. So the thing about Trent is that he's on corner kicks, he's on free kicks. There's many avenues for him to score. And although the numbers might not be great, there's a lot of avenues for him to score, and that's kind of why I'm going to hold on to him through this this exciting patch really for Liverpool to really see where we're at. I'm so excited for this patch of games. It's like, okay, now rubber hits the road. Let's go. Let's see what we got.
Yeah, I haven't decided that I'm definitely selling. I just think that as I think about ways that I'm going to do small surgery to this side during this run, at a time when I feel like there will be more rotation.
Yeah.
I question whether or not it makes sense to hold that much on him or that much in a defender if I'm just hoping for clean sheets. Brian Shelton says, I wouldn't expect any real rotation in the league for Liverpool. And see, I just can't. I understand that mentality, but you're not going to play Wednesday, Saturday, Tuesday, Friday, Tuesday, Sunday, and all these matches and be able to start Trent midweek and league games. And I just don't understand why you would think if you're trying to keep Trent happy, you're not sitting him on big Champions League nights at home against Leverkusen or against Real Madrid. And honestly, if you're sitting Trent against Real Madrid to play him, and I'm not talking about sitting Trent against Arsenal, but I think you do have to consider one of the Brighton, if not both of the Brighton matches. I think you have to look at some of these rotatable games. And I think even if Trent's starting matches, if Trent isn't playing full 90 minutes, I mean, he got subbed off in the 58th minute in one match when they had a clean sheet going.
Yeah.
So he lost all those points. And I think that what we've seen from Slot is that he is going to rotate his key players that he feels maybe have been run into the ground in years past. And I think it's going to be interesting. And I do think in many cases, we are looking at us. We are looking at. I think in many cases we're looking at a side that isn't going to be one that is easy to pinpoint the guarantees from a fantasy perspective,
Hmm.
unless you're rolling with Mo Salah. And I think if you're rolling with that, you're literally looking for a differential that is a premium, which, again, I come back to the whole, like, if you're not captaining a $12 million player, should he be in your side?
Right.
And I think that's the problem I have with Mo. And I think I might even starting to be getting there with Trent. But it'll be interesting to see if some defenders step up and make it easier, because that 2 or 3 million, that's a big move there, because that to me is how you can have a really balanced side. And after match week 12, like you said, have Saka, two Arsenal defenders, maybe even Raya and Gabriel,
Yeah.
Saka, Palmer, Solanke, and Holland. And I
Yeah. And
think if
that,
you have that,
yeah.
you have the makings of what could be the second half template to really make moves, if you can
Yeah.
make some differential moves.
No, that's a really good point. The way you kind of talked that out, I hadn't thought of that. But as I'm looking at the games, Brighton in the League Cup, that's definitely rotation.
Of course.
I'm wondering if Leipzig is. I'm not sure. The thing is with Leipzig is they've lost both of their games in the Champions League, so they need
Correct.
this game. So I don't know if there's going to be rotation there. I don't know if Slot says, okay, maybe the guys from South America come, miss the Chelsea game and then come in for that game to kind of, balance out Trent maybe missing that one. It's a good point. It's a really good point, Gally. I never thought about it the way you have, and it's a good point.
So take a look at my side here. Decent bounce back week after a really poor week the week before. Move up to 1.2 million in the world. I should have made comment about this. It's kind of weird and freaky to the fact that we are on exactly 440 points. Like, I don't know what the odds would be of the two of us out of the 10 million people in the world doing a podcast together and being on the exact same score.
Pretty
after
different
7
teams
weeks.
too.
Pretty similar looking teams.
No, different. I think different.
Oh no, you're right. Very different. I think
Yeah.
we only have two players that are the same, in Alexander Arnold and Holland.
Yeah.
And on the entire sides. Interesting stuff for sure. Nice move for me to make up, 30% gain. Obviously, Saka was a big key. At one point I had the captain's armband on him. I was thinking of going for a big differential. Would have been a big move on my part. Had I, stuck with my guns there. 2 weeks in a row, I've changed captains to Holland late, and both times would have scored more points if I had left it where it was. Feel good about this side, to be honest. I really like Saka and Buemo. I hear you about Saka. The thing about Saka to me is because he is 90 minutes guaranteed, and to your point about Trent, he's on corners, free kicks, and as a bonus, he's on penalties.
Yeah.
And he's the most influential player in the entire side. And statistically, he's, right up there, in my opinion, with Palmer, Holland.
He's a stud.
For player of the year. He's an absolute stud.
Yeah.
I love having him on my side. I'm sticking with Solanke for a little bit longer because his underlying numbers are just too good. And that team's going to create, and they're creating in an opportunity. I need Mikolenko to get back to health, because he was my luxury, because I like their fixtures, to have Rico Lewis, so that if he didn't play, I felt okay with the sub, or in weeks that I knew he wouldn't start, I could move him out. I still like the Lewis move. I think he's probably the second best to City asset to maybe Gvardiol, other than Holland right now, because I think Foden still has question marks of his minutes. I don't know what Grealish is going to do, how much Savinho is going to play. So, and I still think that the back line is questionable after you lose Rodri. So Gabriel's not going anywhere. Flecken is an easy set it and forget it keeper on a team like Brentford that does well. So I like the side overall. I have 2 free transfers. I'm torn, like I told you, of, do I sit Semenyo versus Arsenal and just start Luis Diaz and hope he starts? The match is Sunday. He hasn't played since Tuesday. They've been back, so it's not like a late trip in.
That's true.
So, is that's the one thing I'd hate. I'd hate to move off Diaz, pick up some midfielder that I don't even start, or I start and doesn't really give me much. And I'm not even really sure who I go to there in that like 8 million price range. I do like Bowen. I've West Ham starting to click a little bit. I think Jared Bowen's a really good player. I think he's played well since, even though they've been poor so far. And I think as time goes on, they'll get better, but might not be there yet. So I'm still kind of in a touch and go move. I don't think I'll touch the front line. If anything, I'll make maybe one or two small little tweak moves, but I just feel like it's almost better right now to just kind of roll with the punches, see if I can't squeak out another week without making a move. Go into next week with 3 transfers, little bit more information in the bank, and hopefully kind of get closer to those fixture swings that we were talking about and decide if I'm going to like really beef up on, and who knows, maybe then I make the double move and I move Diaz. And Trent. I bring in, a medium, maybe I bring in a mid-tier defender and I go up to Palmer at that point.
Yeah.
And I make the move, like, because if I can get to a world where I have Saka, Mbeumo, Palmer, and Holland, Solanke, Gabriel, and another Arsenal defender, I'm feeling pretty good about myself as this thing turns between the Christmas fixtures, I think. And of course, all of this sounds great until, Cole Palmer turns his knee against Liverpool on Sunday. Like, you never know in these things, that's why you can plan weeks ahead, but you also have to have alternate plans.
Yeah, it's almost like we want, like, I don't want anybody to get hurt, but it's almost like it would almost be a relief if Holland was out for a while, because it's like, oh, okay, great. Now my
I
team
could reshift my whole team. Everyone in the whole game would have to balance it out.
Yeah. No, I hear you. I mean, when I look at your team, it's definitely solid. With the defensive frailties and a couple guys out at Chelsea, might be, I don't know, if I had your team, I might roll the dice one more time for Luis Diaz.
Even if he comes on as a sub, he might be able to come on and make an impact. My problem is if I'll start him either way because, I go into every match thinking Arsenal is going to keep a clean sheet, to be honest. Like, that's just my mentality when Arsenal starts a match. I think they'll keep a clean sheet. So as much as I really like Semenyo and I love having him on my side, I feel more comfortable starting probably Diaz and Rodgers, even if Diaz comes in as a sub.
Yeah.
Sideline Football said, I think captaining Holland is a good move. Playing Wolves, he might get some goals. I definitely think it's a good move to captain Holland this week. Also, it's solid. I agree. Makes me go back to my forgotten fantasy team. I totally understand that as well. So, captaincy choices this week. Are you captaining Holland? No question.
Yeah, no question. No question at all. Wolves away, leaking goals. I think he gets right. Could you imagine him going 3 weeks without scoring? I mean, it's just like, I don't know.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that one. I think Holland's an auto captain this week. I don't think there's really any question to it. I do think Wolves start to figure things out in the coming weeks. They have a pretty good run of form. They have a pretty good run of fixtures.
Yeah.
Quite a few interesting moves that might be there. Like, we talked about Altonori, especially with how he is going forward. You can't really talk about Wolves without talking about Cunha. I think Cunha is the guy there, probably on penalties at this point. And if you have an opportunity to pick him up, and I think he's better than the big, tall Stred Larson or whatever his name is. I do like Cunha. I just worry again about Wolves because I don't know how long Gary O'Neill holds on to his job. If he were to lose that job, I think that could be something that kind of spirals. And I think that could lead to Wolves having kind of a tougher run of fixtures. So before we get out of here, any final thoughts, words of wisdom to the listeners, things to look out for, things you're thinking of watching this week, etc.
Yeah, the Chelsea Liverpool game is obviously the highlight this week, and it's very interesting from a perspective of what the game's going to look like. Now, from a fantasy perspective, Holland, just captain him, forget about it. I think it's gonna come good. I mentioned a couple weeks ago I was on Palmer. He scored 4 goals in like 34 minutes. Could have had 5. Could have had 2 more assists. I mean, he was all like unreal. Okay, stroke of luck for sure, but you mentioned the escalator going down. I was in the basement, Gally, and I climbed my way back up, so I was already on the down skid.
There you go.
Yeah, but I think you really made a really good point about Trent and what is that going to look like if you pull him and go to a $5 million defender and what that does to your team. So you actually got my mind thinking. So I'm actually conceding the floor to you on that one because I think you really made a really good point on that. And I've said really good about 6-7 times already. So
yeah, well, thank you. I do appreciate it, and we should clip it and keep it for the record books because I don't make very many good points. So I want to thank everyone that has joined us tonight. Thank you, Brian Shelton. Thank you to Sideline Football Show and Tamer for joining the chat today. We always love to hear where you're chiming in from, whether that is from your home studio, your gym, or Walmart with your little guy. We don't need any of that Adama baby oil. That's saved for the Friday morning show and our good friend Kazi, who loves himself some Adama Traore. From all of us here at American Scouser TV, thank you for watching. This has been another edition of the Fantasy Premier League show. If you haven't already, please get on over there, give the page a subscription, drop the likes, hit all the thumbs up, all the good stuff except for that one with the thumb pointing down. As always, send us a message, get involved. We love to hear from you, want to know what we're doing well, what we can improve on. If you want to get involved with us here at the channel, send us a message as well because we're always looking for new volunteers and contributors to help with all types of fun, and it's always fun stuff here at American Scouser TV. All right, everyone, enjoy the matches this weekend. I hope all of your transfers work, your chips succeed. Green arrows for everybody. Don't take any hits. If you get a red arrow, it's all right. It's just 1 week. We'll be back next Thursday night at 9 a.m. And don't forget to tune in tomorrow morning for a Reckless Friday mornings coffee and tea brought to you by Reckless Coffee. For myself and Salim, have a great night, and we will see you soon.